Hey there. I think this might actually work. I think it might. I'm not positive. Um, you're watching the BCast on the BCast.com. Scott Baker with you, not from the studio in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. In fact, just on the eyesight camera, even in the room at the Mercury Radio Art Studio, where the lights will automatically shut off at some point. But that'll be part of the fun when things go gray. And I have the large Yeti mic over here, and I think if I've done this correctly, I'm able to even. Oh yeah, now you're already making fun of me that I'm almost on time. It was a helter skelter rush here, by the way. You remember last week when I told you that was making Liz very, very angry. She was obligated to be at an event today elsewhere, and it just so happened that the coordinated opportunity arose for me to come to New York. Not that anybody from the Stu is here, but Glenn, of course, is off today, and Pat was out west, and but I came to the Mercury Studio because we taped a little video interview with novelist and author Vince Flynn. So obviously, if you know anything about Liz, you can understand why she would be absolutely furious that I'm here in New York and she's not. So yeah, in fact, just finished just a little while ago. Sat down, and so I even have like a little raw version to play you some parts of it here, and we'll do that in a sec. So I'm not going to promise that this will be a full-blown hour-long extravaganza, but we'll see how much we get to, because honestly, in getting ready for Vince, and I was trying to read up on some of the books and I didn't have a chance to like grab a lot of video here today. I have a lot of things to say, however, and I think there are even copies of Glenn's new book around here too. I don't know if I'm allowed to. I think I'm allowed to show that. I mean, they're out. I don't think it's a secret. I mean, we know what the thing looks like, right? And then I have the, there you go. That's the. Oh, see what I told you? Okay, right now, so the light went out. So we'll just, now I've got. I guess I could slide away from the backlit version over here. How's that? You missed the Chrysler building off over that way, but it looks a little. All right, we'll live with that. But what a day! I mean, even I'm sitting here getting ready to interview Vince Flynn, and all of a sudden there are all of these bulletins coming across about explosives found in Manhattan. This is Columbus Day. It's funny. It took me a while to realize that. I was watching the traffic on the Blaze, and it was good, because we've been doing really well. But it wasn't quite as good as I was hoping for for a Monday morning. And I was like, wait a minute. And it took me like 2 or 3 hours to remember that it was a holiday. And I was like, oh, well then given it's a holiday for a lot of people, we're doing really well. But, so here, they say they found these explosives, and they found, I guess, a couple of pieces of C4 explosive in a cemetery down near the Village. And this is they got Fifth Avenue shut off. Everybody's set for the big parade, and so obviously security on alert. Now, apparently at this time that I'm doing this 4:06 on Monday afternoon, there was no sign of a detonator involved. But that could have been a drop point for somebody to pick something up, or it could be totally unrelated, right? It could have been one member of the mafia handing stuff off to another member of the mafia to go blow up somebody's business somewhere in New Jersey. That could be. But when this is all happening, I'm sitting with Vince Flynn, getting ready to tape an interview, and as you'll see, I'll play part of this. It suddenly seemed like we were sort of in a Vince Flynn novel. So I did get a signed copy, for Liz. So. It's I was gonna say something about throwing it at the president, but and look, that was my first reaction, wasn't it yours, when you saw that somebody threw a book at the president? right? You were like, oh, please, let it not be one of Glenn's books. Wasn't that the? Here, I can. I'm sorry. I'll get a little closer to the mic. I'll turn up the gain a little bit. 1098-7654. How about that? Any good? 3, 4, 5. Where is Liz? Liz is she's at an event that she had to, a family event that she had to go to. Now I'll lean in on the Yeti mic. Still too low? I think I'm at full volume. I think I am. I'll move up the gain a little bit. 1098-7654 321. So when you heard that somebody threw a book at the president, weren't you thinking, wait a minute, please don't let this be a copy of Arguing with Idiots? So apparently now it seems like it was somebody who wanted it to be, they were a fan of Obama. They just wanted him to read their book, so they threw it at him. And how about that Reuters photographer kind of just snapping the picture right at the exact right moment? And you combine that with the streaker, which I do love that picture that we put in the carousel at the top of the blaze. So the woman in the Michael Jackson hat shielding her eyes. Yeah. They're throwing books at Obama and running naked. It is a 3-ring circus. It was nearly, truly naked emperor news. Was it not? Was it not? Let me go ahead and play the interview with Vince, and then we'll come back on the other side and talk about it. And what I'm going to, I'll post this on the Blaze shortly, and then we'll have. And I think I asked him about, listen for this part in the interview, and you can help me kind of craft the story. You know the author that wrote this book, Operation Dark Heart. I think that's the name of it. Shepard. I'll look it up here. The one that the Defense Department bought all 10,000 copies and then destroyed. I asked Vince Flynn about that, and I think it's pretty. I think it's pretty interesting. So hopefully this will work. Take a look and see what you think, and we'll talk about it after. 3, 2, 1, go. Hey, all right. I think we're on. Scott Baker managing editor of their Blaze, and we're going to talk with Vince Flynn. In fact, we're in New York City, and as we tape this, the Columbus Day Parade is going on outside, and we just glanced over, and there was something about explosives being found near the parade route. All of a sudden, I feel like I'm in a Vince Flynn novel. The news actually has to make you feel like you're like reading your idea notes, doesn't it?
You know, it's wild. When I'm under deadline, I'll wake up in the morning and I'll think to myself, did I dream it? Did I write it, or did I read it? You know, because it gets so intertwined sometimes because of the level of research that goes into these books, the level of sources that I have as well, and then for 4 months out of the year, more than that, but for 4 really hard months where I'm working almost 7 days a week, I'm trying to figure out what the terrorists are going to do next.
Right. Now, over the decade, you've been churning out Mitch Rapp books and hitting one bestseller out of the park after another. You've covered a lot of territory, and from pre 9/11 to after 9/11, and the new book, American Assassin, kind of goes back to the beginning and before, which is an interesting twist. So for the people that were expecting kind of like the next chapter in the Mitch Rapp story, will this surprise them that it's actually kind of like a prequel?
No, I always say I read the Ludlum, the Bourne series out of order, and I loved it. I loved that I could go back. I liken it to, going to, my wife grew up in northern Minnesota, going to her small town for the first time. I never knew her as a child. Right. So to go back and learn all these details about her life, I found to be just absolutely fascinating. And this book is actually the perfect starting place for someone who has not read the series. I was saying the other day on something that my wife is a big Friends fan, the TV show. Right. When I was writing my first book, I was bartending at night, so I did that night that it was on. I was working, so I was never a big Friends guy. And then we got married, and the reruns were airing, and we started watching those, and I turned into a Friends fan. It was fine. Right. But you're always kind of afraid to jump in the water with
Right.
something that's become popular culture like that. And the rap series has become so popular that I've met a few people that'll say, especially at signings, husbands and wives will go up and it'll be one or the other saying, I'm trying to get him or I'm trying to get her to read it, but they don't. They just said, I've missed the boat. He's been doing this for a decade. This is the perfect book to start with because it shows you Rap's motivation, why he was recruited. What drives a man who at the age of 22 decides, I'm going to go become an assassin for the CIA? And there are young gentlemen who face this real world question.
And there. I mean, for a lot of people in the real world, 9/11 was that, but the Lockerbie bombing was kind of the setting.
That was the
era.
impetus for Rap. And, so I went to high school. I graduated in '84 and then college in '88. And that December after I graduated was the Pan Am Lockerbie.
Right. Yeah.
And this upsets me because people say disaster, tragedy. It was the Pan Am Lockerbie terrorist attack.
Right.
And it's a little known fact that there was a large group of Syracuse students were coming home for the Christmas break on that flight, and they all went down. And it just stuck in my mind. This is what happens when we don't confront terrorism. And what would it be like if you had a loved one on that flight or a child or something, how upset you would be. And that was in the backstory about Rap way back in the beginning, but I never really gave all the details until this book now.
You mentioned back at the beginning you're off tending bar. Probably a lot of your fans kind of know your story, but for the ones that don't, this was not a predictable course for you to end up being best-selling author Vince Flynn.
It was, first of all, I never got better than a C in an English class in high school or college.
Inspiration to students everywhere.
I sit on the board of St. Thomas Academy where I went to high school, and it's an all-male Catholic military prep school.
Right.
They since I've graduated, they keep raising the standards of academic excellence.
And you wanted to go into the military too.
Yeah. So every time they want to build a new building, I like to remind them that. So most of the guys you're going to go ask the money for them were the C students. So you should stop. Maybe you should think about stop raising the academic standards.
Right.
But so diagnosed with dyslexia when I was in grade school, and kind of hid from it for years. I'm in college, and I decided because of some embarrassing situations that I needed to confront this. So I started reading for the very first time up for enjoyment. And the next thing you know, I was addicted to the thing I was most fearful of growing up. And I found that I had a gift. And the gift was that every time I picked up a book, within 10 pages, I would know exactly what was going to happen. And I'm that way with TV shows and movies. You
just see the arc.
Well, what's funny? It freaks my kids out. I have a 15-year-old, a 10-year-old, and an 8-year-old.
Right.
And I will sit there and tell them what's going to happen next. And my daughter, who's most like me, the 10-year-old, will pause the movie and say, Dad, you've seen this before. And I'll say, no, I haven't. So now she's in on the game.
Right.
She's gotten really good at it, too.
So do they just like throw characters at you and then you come up with the story, instantly? I mean,
No, we'll be watching a movie. And I'll say,
and
guess
you'll
what's
have it figured out.
I'm to the point where I will blurt out dialogue.
Right.
I'll blurt out dialogue before it's spoken, and they just turn around, they look at me like, what? How did you know it? And I think, my guess is dyslexic kids see patterns.
Huh.
They can kind of see where things are going, which helps me immensely in writing an espionage political thriller. A lot of my research fills in 3 of the 5 unknown variables when I'm talking to the CIA or something like that. I then have to project and guess what the classified information would be. And early on, I was very aggressive about that. There's some stuff that I changed in my books because some of my sources said you're a little too close to home here.
Right.
But it wasn't until Consent to Kill that I stumbled upon something by pure accident that made me really stop and think about what I put in these books. And
because it's not like you want to be the guy saying, "Oh, I'm giving the terrorists ideas on what to do."
Well, in fact, I learned something by guessing in a private conversation a few years ago. And the person sitting across from me was so shocked that I had guessed this. They basically pleaded with me to never repeat it. And I said, all right, I won't. And I haven't. And the funny thing is, this piece of information wouldn't really have helped the terrorists. It would have helped like the ACLU
Right.
or Eric Holder or somebody like that.
I'm tempted to say fade to black, tell me, and then when we come back up, I'll be like, no way, really?
I haven't told anybody. I haven't even told my wife. And it's something that makes such sense,
Right.
that you just I can't repeat it.
What's your take on the Defense Department and what they've done with this memoir, the Operation
The
Dark
redacted
Heart?
memoir.
Yeah, the redacted, where they bought 10,000 copies and destroyed them.
I think it's, in a way, it's somewhat laughable, because I think that the information is by and large already gotten out there. It's been leaked here and there, and
so what kind of message are they trying to send?
I think what they're trying to do is tell the other people in positions where they've had to sign a national security non-disclosure document that you can't do this,
Right.
or we're going to play hardball. And so in that sense, from that one perspective, it makes sense that you would try to shut this thing down. As far as the information leaking, we're in a weird day and age right now where you've got the WikiLeaks deal going on,
Right.
and we're a nation at war right now. So you kind of stop and you ask yourself, well, if we're at war and this guy is knowingly getting secrets from somebody who worked in the Pentagon and printing them for all the world to see, isn't he by de facto an enemy of the state?
Right.
And if so, what are we doing to stop him? We've kind of lost our stomach to go do the nasty things that war requires. And I don't know if we'll get back to it. My guess is if something truly horrific happens,
Right.
chemical attack, nuclear attack, something along those lines, that kills enough people, you will see the patience level for people just disappear quickly on these issues.
Is that the role for a Vince Flynn book? You want it to be enjoyable. You want people to be interested.
But I want it to be thought-provoking.
But you want it to kind of create and force us to contemplate scenarios that we really don't want to think about, but we need to. And this does it in a way that maybe it has a little more traction than just kind of flipping by something.
Yeah, it has more traction because it holds your interest.
Right.
Not everybody, has the desire to read a 16-page Atlantic Monthly article on torture.
Right.
And then there's the issue of it being biased. If you do read it, and where's it coming from? Is it truly representing both sides of that argument? Which I've never seen a piece in the Atlantic that does. It's usually written from that one perspective, which is that torture doesn't work. And the argument I like to throw out at people is, if torture doesn't work, then why do we make all of our CIA operatives go through what they basically call is a hell weekend?
Right.
Where they bring them down to the farm, they don't let them eat, they don't let them sleep, they manipulate the temperature, they slap them around, and before the thing starts, they tell them, you're going to talk.
Right.
You will talk. Everybody talks. You break. The key is we need you to keep your mouth shut for 24 to 48 hours so we can move our assets out of harm's way. They do the same thing with Air Force, Navy, and Marine Corps pilots. If they go down behind enemy lines, that they've got to zip it up for 24 to 48 hours and withstand, but they tell them all, you will break. And so enhanced interrogation, which is what I prefer to call it.
Right, yeah.
I think torture, we're a civilized society, and torture is not something that we would really want to talk about or condone in any way, shape, or form. But I define torture as what Saddam Hussein used to do.
Right.
Which is to bring a guy's daughter into a room and say, talk or we're going to gang rape her.
Yeah.
Or sign this confession or we're going to gang rape her. So that's going to get you a false confession. What our people in the enhanced interrogation system do is they break somebody down over a period of time and get them to talk. And they know, like a good prosecutor in a courtroom, they know the answer to the first 15 questions they ask. They want to get a baseline established. Is this person being honest or not?
Right.
And they go from there.
What will for the fans of this series? This one takes them back to the beginning. What are they going to learn about Mitch Rapp that will surprise them?
I think what they're going to learn going all the way back to the beginning like this is that even Rapp wasn't entirely sure he had the goods to do this. He thought he did, but for anybody that launches into a serious career, there's a leap of faith. How did you know you could do radio the first time? there's a real
right.
leap of faith there. That when you look at that
jury's still
clock
out
and
on
it,
Yeah.
well, when I wrote my first book, Leap of Faith, you just don't know. So he's a little green, but he hasn't been poisoned yet. What you're going to find, later, and if you read all the way through the series, what you find is a guy who has become so absolutely distrustful of Washington, D.C. and the people that run Washington that he wants to spend as little time there as possible.
How much time do you spend there? We just have a couple of minutes here, and I know that you've said. I mean, you have Republicans that read your books, you have Democrats that read your books, you have presidents that read your books. What kind of experience is it for you when you are in?
When I'm in
city?
Washington, I always laugh that it seems like once a year at least I'll run into I'll meet a new politician in Washington, and it'll tell me how much they love the books, and half the time I'm looking at them thinking, well, you were the motivation for the jerk in Consent to Kill or whatever it was. But by and large, they're charming people. That's how they get elected.
Right, exactly.
That's how they raise money.
Right.
You have to be somewhat charming. The issue is I think the town becomes so poisonous, and you end up just selling your soul quickly.
Yeah, right. You gonna write anything that's not a political thriller? You ever just want to write she owns a cupcake shop in Greenwich?
No.
Look, the key now
She
to
owned
sell
a
books is,
cupcake-
I think they all have to be books about crimes in Sweden now. You can sell a bazillion of those
She
books.
owned a cupcake store that used plastic explosives to make cupcakes or something. No, we're talking about expanding into the YAs, write a young adult novel.
Sure, right.
I started a new series with Brian Haig, who's a phenomenal writer. That's going to come out next spring. It's about a New York City NYPD counterterrorism detective.
Ah, cool.
And maybe someday a nonfiction, how to write, motivation, that kind of motivation thing. But
that's terrific.
I'm having too much fun writing the rap series right now to go do nonfiction.
And you got to watch out of these guys writing stuff like the Overton window. I mean, they're always gunning for you to try and you just got to be
Absolutely.
Well, we got about 20 seconds here. We really appreciate your coming by the studio and. There you go. Okay, Vince Flynn in studio. I think it was. I think I didn't look like I was gloating too much, right? As far as how Liz will perceive this, and I got a couple of copies of the books and signed for people. Got her one, and he was very very gracious. But interesting I thought on his take on the Pentagon. It's like. They're not destroying the copies doesn't really accomplish anything. The information's out there. It's sending a message to other people, and also then it just does raise questions about what do you publish. I noticed even in his very first book, I picked up a copy of it. I'm trying to think of the name of it off the top of my head. But he says in the very beginning that he's changed some details about the layout and the workings of the White House so as to not provide actual or too much information to anyone that might happen to be watching. So I think I've as long as I bring Liz a copy back, I think we're going to be okay. I think so. You're watching the BCast on thebcast.com. It is a live show from the studio in Midtown Manhattan, high above Times Square, as Glenn likes to say. And I wanted to at least get this show in, at least get the Vince interview up. We can probably talk about a few other things. I might even take a couple of. This is not my office, by the way. I don't have an office yet. In fact, what happens, Blaze-wise, is that when I make it up to New York, usually once a week or every other week, more like every other week, I just go and grab whatever desk happens to be available. And then there's not always an Ethernet cord available. There's Wi-Fi, but on the Wi-Fi, the instant message doesn't work. Don't ask me why. Well, you can't run the Blaze. You can't run a website without having instant message. And because I always got like a zillion instant message windows going, and in dealing with the relentless pace that we try to keep going, is the level of concentration is very high, and so it's going to be so literally I was sitting for most of today with the interns, and LJ on his side where they do the T-shirts and everything. So I was in a little cubicle over there, somewhere between interns, some assistants, Jeffy, and LJ who does the T-shirts, and that's where I was holed up for the middle part of the day. But then there's a whole slew of Blazish meetings coming up here, even in the 5 o'clock hour. So I'm not sure if I'm going to go all the way to 5, but we can probably talk about a couple of things. And no, not as bad. I'm gonna keep trying to track the chat here. I would say not 3 hours, but probably more like 5. I think a couple days I've gotten 6. I've been going to bed about 2:30, getting up maybe 7. If I can, I'll go back to sleep for an hour or so at like 9. But I will need more sleep. This is true. But it's just taken us to get through the drill of getting this thing out of the gate and getting the workflow down, and eventually. But I feel pretty good. I feel energized, and we've got a lot of exciting things coming up. And I think we're going to do. It's like it's fun to do like the interviews like that. I don't know that we can always do them in the studio. It was a little easier today because they weren't here. But I've been trying to decide how much to mix in of like author interviews and things like that, to post. So what did you think about the? I wanted to touch on just a couple of stories that we were following today. Beyond the ones I was making fun of earlier about the tossing the books at the president and the and the streakers. It is a classic picture, isn't it? The woman with. Do I have it? I think I have it. I bet I can make that happen here quickly. Let's see. It had to have been on this desktop at some point recently. Oh, come on. 3, 2. It's got to be called Naked or something, right? Yeah, that's got to be it. Let's get to the ends. This is it. No, that wasn't it. What else did I call it? Guess it could have been Streak. Let's see. Was it Streak? Did I call it Streak? Nah, out of luck. You're gonna have to go look. You know what I'm talking about? Where she's wearing a Michael Jackson hat from the This Is It tour, hiding her eyes from the streaker. I'm like, you were capable of watching Michael Jackson, and yet you're horrified by this pasty fat white man. So here's what I wanted to talk about the Oath Keeper story. We'd been getting a number of tips about this, and the initial take was, did the state of, I think it was New Hampshire, take the kid because the dad was a member of Oath Keepers? Because that was referenced in one of the documents. And so on some of the conservative sites and some of the edgier sites, they were really going after this hard. And so I had John Seidel take a look at all of the information. Said, just give me your best recommendation. I read through some of it with him, and it's a little more complicated than that. Now, here's where the line falls. It seems as though there are some complicating factors about the father, his behavior, the history of perhaps domestic violence. We even have some sources that are telling us some things about the guy that would have nothing to do with the fact that he was an Oath Keepers, but might have a very plausible and practical reason why they would have intervened, why child custody might have come in this case, right? But the state does mention Oath Keepers. So is this a troublesome sign of government observation, especially when we've come off of the Democratic legislators or the Republican legislators talking about the use of the IRS to be auditing conservatives and conservative groups? But this guy is not going to be Prince Charming, right? So this is not going to be a case where this guy looks great and is victimized because he was a member of a right-wing organization called Oath Keepers. As whatever stage of information this comes up, and it's on in red now on Drudge today, there's going to be a lot of scrutiny, and probably more facts will come out about this. He's not going to look great. But as that happens, if headlines start coming out about this guy and why the kid was taken, will that discredit Oath Keepers, or is it still worth an examination of saying, well, why did you choose to list this, right? So, like, if I was a state social services worker in Pennsylvania, and I'm investigating this couple, and I think the mother has been secretly poisoning her kid. What do they call that? Is it Munchausen syndrome? Like the Baron Munchausen thing? Right, where somebody is poisoning their own child so that they get attention and they're perceived as a suffering parent, and they take the kid to the hospital. It's been a plot of many movies. Part of it was in The Sixth Sense and other things. So if that's the case, and I'm saying I think you're poisoning your child, I'm going to take your child, and then I write up the paperwork and I say, we have this evidence, and she did this, and she said this once to a teacher, and we have this account of the family, and also she's a member of the PTA. Or that she's a member of the National Organization for Women, or she's a member of Planned Parenthood. If I start listing other groups that this woman might be involved in, to try and sort of add something like what she wished she would have aborted her. Am I trying to send some message there? So because this guy, who, depending on who the accounts here, some would say might not be a really great guy, because he was associated with Oath Keepers, is that a reason for them to say, ooh, right-wing group, sounds kind of militia-like, let's go ahead and list that? Or should there be an actual press to say, let's find out, Munchausen by proxy, thanks, and you guys chat hosted by proxy, and that's effective. So to me, that's where this thing is going to come down. I don't think you play this case big headlines, state takes kid because dad was an Oath Keepers. There's going to be more to it than that. But I think that the Oath Keepers angle is a very legitimate thing to examine. That's my feeling. I'm looking just through a couple of things. If I'd had time to pull the video together to play here in the show, but you'll just have to go watch these independently on your own. Oh, I'll mention this one. Speaking of the of conspiracy theories, what are we going to find out about the lake in Texas? Right? I know some of you may have noticed that I had linked on the Blaze to Michelle Malkin's piece where she said, something here doesn't sound right. This woman is giving too many different accounts and different interviews saying different things, and we all need to be skeptical up until some determination of law is made. But then then shortly after, we get the video of the police stop where they were pulled over for speeding or whatever, and you see the two jet skis, and now we know they were going jet skiing just 3 hours before this incident happened. And then we have a witness who then sees the woman coming, racing around the lake, and she's tearful. And then now, today, we're finding out that, that when the police were out there, they did engage with some violent drug gangs on the lake or near the lake. And now they think that two of those people may be suspects. Well, interesting. But I still like taking, and I think this is healthy, take the Michelle Malkin approach. It's why I like Michelle Malkin. She's willing to make a hard and passionate argument, but she is a good enough journalist not to dissuade very legitimate questions. And that kind of is what came to play in the Oath Keepers thing. And as you see stuff sent around the internet and people saying, look at this outrage, I think that our standards need to be high and going in and saying, all right, well, really, what, when, where, why, how, right? Before it goes on your blog, before you forward on that email to 100 different people, have it be a little bit skeptical. Be a little bit skeptical. Do a couple of Google searches. It helps me, by the way, because then people send fewer things to me, and since I'm overloaded, I only want the really good stuff. But you guys have a pretty good eye, and you tend to send the good stuff 9 times out of 10. I'm just gonna give quick takes as I'm looking at this. If you have not watched the video of the Democratic candidate in West Virginia shooting an actual rifle through the cap and trade bill, that's classic. Because you're trailing, and you've now, this is a safe ad for you to totally go Dale Peterson, and in West Virginia, that's being against cap and trade is going to be a winning issue. Funny. What else? And you know what? Because I'm probably going to have to make this a 45-minute show because I've got to get ready for a meeting at 5 o'clock. Oh yeah, I'm sorry. What? It wasn't West Virginia. I wasn't dissing West Virginia. If you're against cap and trade, that's a winning issue in West Virginia. Coal, right? This was a purely business issue. I wasn't trying to diss the fine people of West Virginia in any way, shape, or form. And I told you, we were the ones that played up the how stupid the GOP was with the Hickey ad. Excuse me. Oh, it was funny during the. I thought I was going to sneeze there. While we were doing the Vince Flynn interview, his publicist was in the studio, and about 10 minutes into the interview, I can hear that this guy is trying to suppress some kind of coughing fit. And he literally gets out of his chair, and I think he crawled on the floor to be underneath all of the cameras to get to the other side to yank the door open to escape the studio. Little moment. Questions? Anybody? Wide open here on Monday afternoon. I could ramble on about it. I mean, look, I always have things to say, but I'm totally willing in a circumstance like this without dragging things on here to hit any questions you might have before we get out of here. And then we'll have a studio show tomorrow in Pittsburgh. Both Liz and me, and we'll be able to cover a lot of ground. And then there'll be a few twists and turns later in the week, but I think you'll enjoy them. I'm going over all my. I'm telling you this I've got the instant message going. I've got two I had 2 writers on the line. One of them just dropped off, and flurry of things coming through. Oh, I know what I want to talk about. What do we make of the woman in Michigan who lived next to the dying 7-year-old? Well, you can't make much. This was a case. I'm sure that all neighborhood disputes are messy. 2 families near each other. Apparently, a couple years ago, one of them at a birthday party, they put up one of those kids' bounce houses. One family texted the other about whether the kids could play. The other person didn't respond right away. Somebody felt slighted, and this led to kind of a spiraling of animosity. Now, the young mother in the one house has Huntington's disease, one of the worst diseases that you can get, and she dies when she's 24. 7-year-old has it. In fact, Huntington's disease is one of those ones where they often test, because the question becomes, if you have Huntington's disease, there's a very high chance that your children will get it. I don't know what it is. I remember this because when I was in college and I was on an argumentation and debate class. I know that you can't imagine me in argumentation and debate. And a student a few years ahead of me, I think had actually graduated, but was one of the top competitive speakers in the Wheaton speech team, and and I did some of that and knew some people that knew him. He gave a very persuasive speech about the fact that he had the gene for Huntington's disease, and is it ethical for you to reproduce, right? And then I remember thinking about that and contemplating the implications of Huntington's disease when I was in school. And so when watching the story, that was very much in my mind. So here's the 7-year-old, and she's dying, and the mother is dead, and the idiot neighbor is posting taunting pictures on Facebook, pictures of the mother with the Grim Reaper, pictures of the little girl with skull and crossbones, and this starts to get out, and the station there goes out there. They interview the woman, and she's just like straight out, "Oh yeah, why are you doing this?" And she uses some profanity that she loves rubbing this family the wrong way, and it's like she's just going to stick it to him. But then it starts really getting out. She starts getting death threats, so she gets back on TV, and I'm sorry for what I said and all the rest of that. But they still did it. They even said that they'd put a coffin on their yard for Halloween. Really? Apparently they didn't really do this. So I put together, probably with a little more editorial invective, a piece that just kind of went through all of the stages of that story. And Glenn sent me a note over the weekend about it and just said, "What have we become? Where people can act that way. You're going to make fun of a dying 7-year-old because of some tiff that you had with her dead mother about a bounce house." Vile. That was the word that somebody used. Yeah. Some of you are asking about Glenn's health, and I don't know. I know he's getting tested today and tomorrow, I think. It's I don't think it's the Diet Coke. You might have seen that on Dredge, right? We're saying that the artificial sweeteners in Diet Coke could be what's causing his problems. I have nothing more to tell you than what I told you on Friday. Glenn's been pretty open and out there. He was saying on the air, even before last Thursday, saying, my hands are and feet are numb. They're tingling. Not sure what it is. And that was it. He just, he told everybody on Thursday that he was going to take off a couple of days, and then went on the radio on Friday and laid it all out there. And so that's what he's doing. So I haven't heard anything back. I mean, look, even if they're doing tests today, I don't know that any tests would be back. And so I think he just wanted to get it done. And I think he feels largely pretty good. And I think he's paying attention to his eyesight, and he's paying attention, and he's doing what the doctors are telling him, and nutrition and exercise and all these things. But when your hands and feet start going numb, there's a lot to assess there, and you need to figure it out. And if his voice is bothering him, and they've scoped his throat, then they need to pay attention to that too. But just my gut, I just have a feeling that. I just have a feeling that things are going to be fine. I think they're going to figure out things that are going on, and until yes, Veritas is saying, did Beck know that I was in his chair? No, I might hear about that. I didn't take it over. I asked the production team where they wanted me to do the interview, and that's what they suggested. It was easier for them. I would have done it someplace else. I will tell you this. Before we did the interview with Vince Flynn, Vince asked if he could sit in Glenn's chair, and he asked me to take pictures of him with his iPhone so that he could email to Glenn pictures of Vince sitting in his chair. And so then we did that we did like a whole sequence of very dramatic. In fact, I took pictures of Vince Flynn weeping over Glenn's microphone. That's where it's at. Any more questions? Going once. Oh wait, let me screen down here. Donuts in the drawers here. There are not donuts in the drawers that I've seen. There, I will tell you that there are baked lays in the break room, and as much there's bottles of water and soft drinks and tea, and free coffee. Free coffee. And then occasionally there are some things that people send over that are like, that I've seen some baked goods, but I've not yet to this point seen actual donuts. I did have a plum tart last night that was very good, but not here. Okay. All right. I am checking through here if any last minute questions. If not, I'm going to sign off at the 50-minute mark here, and then we'll set the loop. If you didn't get to watch the Vince Flynn interview, that will come up soon, and then I'll have it cut and posted, and we're going to at least sections of it tonight on the Blaze, and then the full thing soon. What's my favorite color? I do wear black a lot too, blue or black. And yes, eating in New York is a wonderful experience. Here, let's see. I can give you what restaurant recommendations. Okay, look, you can go to you can get a great hamburger at the Parker Meridian Hotel. They have a little hamburger joint. I like sushi at Sushi Yashuda, and also at Sushi of Gari, Gari. And who's my stylist? Really, OSU fan? That's what it's come down to. I have a stylist in Pittsburgh who I did have back in my TV days. It was of French descent. His name is Arnaud. And he has a salon in Pittsburgh. Yes, this is Scott Insider Extreme. So yes, I'm an elite because I eat sushi, really. That's what's the but I gave you a hamburger joint at the same time. Who was the person that I met and made me feel like a fanboy? Well, I'll go back to being a boy. I would say when I was 17 and met Reagan. Right? It's hard to top that one. And I got to meet him a couple times after that, but that first time, that was probably the in awe moment. I've not had a $50 hamburger. I have not had a $50 hamburger. Have I shopped at Pink yet? No. Pizza is good in New York. This is true. And I had there was pizza actually in the office here today, but I had I know this will be very elitist. It'll stun you. I had a turkey and ham sandwich on pretzel bread. That's what I had for lunch today. While I was doing all my Vince Flynn research. And now I look like William. You know what? I have heard the William Holden thing before. And some people said that went back a long time ago when the guy on 30 Rock, Alec Baldwin, when he was young, that we looked a little alike. I'm coming back down. Yeah. Pretzels from street. Yeah, pretzel bread is good. All right, this is descended. I because I actually love talking about food, and I would do it all day long. So I'll just stop now. This has been a special edition of the Bcast on thebcast.com, live from Midtown Manhattan, high above Times Square, and back in Pittsburgh tomorrow, and in the studio for the full hour. Liz Stevens will be there. I will be there, and Liz will get to give her reaction to my interview with Vince Flynn. For those of you who didn't see the excerpts that we played, that's coming right up here at the break. I do realize that I've made the mistake of not fully having something prepared to go as a bridge. So I'm going to have to re-rack yesterday's show probably, but maybe just for a couple of minutes until I can get this thing going. Thanks, everybody, and we will see you tomorrow. Where's my monkey? Here it is. See ya.
Stevens, for joining us.
The Obama speech.
It's the show news shot.
For BTN and we're saying what matters most to us, but you're also telling us what matters most to you.
This is what matters most, and we're on the cutting edge. It is fast.
It is a day or two ahead of the cycle.
Very fast.